Welcome back, explorers, to our animated science adventure. Grab your gear because today we are preparing to shrink down into a completely microscopic world. We're going to explore the fascinating, totally wild environment of Kingdom Monera. Let's do a super quick check of our mission logs before we jump in. Remember, classification is basically just grouping living things based on their similarities and differences so we can study them easier. We used to rely on the old two-kingdom system from way back in 1758, which only grouped things into Plantae and Animalia. But, well, that system had a lot of limitations. It just didn't have room for all the unique organisms we kept discovering. So we upgraded our maps to R.H. Whitaker's 5-kingdom classification from 1969. We have 5 incredible destinations to visit, and our first stop is a world so tiny we literally have to shrink millions of times just to see it. So powering up the shrink sequence in 3, 2, 1.
All right, level 1 is unlocked. We have officially entered Kingdom Monera. Let's step out of the ship and take a look around. Look at this incredible microscopic environment. It is completely filled with these incredibly tiny single-celled organisms darting everywhere. Now, as we navigate this space, there is one absolute rule you have to know. The organisms living here are what scientists call prokaryotic. I know, that sounds like a huge scientific word, but it's actually pretty simple. Being prokaryotic just means these cells do not have a well-defined nucleus. Imagine a normal cell has a secure vault called a nuclear membrane where it keeps all its important instructions, its genetic material. Well, prokaryotic organisms don't have that vault. Their genetic material just floats freely right inside the cell.
Scanning our surroundings here, we can lock onto a few more key facts. In this kingdom, you're mostly going to find bacteria and blue-green algae, which happen to be some of the oldest, most primitive organisms on our entire planet. First off, they are completely unicellular, meaning their whole body is just one single cell. Because they are so primitive, they also lack other membrane-bound organelles. Think of organelles as tiny machines inside a cell. Monerans just don't have the complex ones with membranes around them. And finally, how do they eat? Well, some are autotrophic, meaning they can actually make their own food using sunlight, kind of like plants. But most bacteria are heterotrophic, meaning they have to get their nutrition by relying on other living or dead things.
Okay, moving right along, level 2 is unlocked. We are now scanning a bacterial cell. Let's run a deep microscopic scan and look at its biological blueprint.
Our ship's database just pulled up a scan of a single bacterium. Did you know these were first discovered way back in 1676 by a Dutch scientist named Antony van Leeuwenhoek? Looking at this scan, you can clearly see the protective layers on the outside, a long tail at the back, and right in the middle of that jelly-like cytoplasm, you see the DNA just floating there. That floating DNA zone is called the nucleoid, because remember, there is no nuclear membrane vault to lock it up. To break it down simply for your mission notes, a bacterium has 4 main features. Step 1, the outer defenses. It has a cell wall, and it's often surrounded by a tough capsule made of proteins for extra protection. Step 2 is the core. This is the nucleoid region holding that freely floating genetic material. Step 3 is the factory. The cytoplasm inside contains non-membranous organelles called ribosomes, which help the cell function and build things. And step 4 is movement. Many bacteria have a whip-like tail called a flagellum that acts exactly like a propeller to help them swim through their environment. All right, level 3 is unlocked. Time to check out the 4 bacterial shapes. Let's classify the different bacteria our sensors are detecting. Our targeting system has identified some incredible variety in such simple creatures. Here is a visual layout of the 4 specific shapes you're going to encounter on our adventure today. We have the rod-shaped bacteria called bacilli, the spherical ones called cocci, the spiral-shaped ones called spirilla, and finally, the comma-shaped ones called vibrio. I know, those are some tricky names, so to easily remember them on your mission, I've got a quick memory trick for you. Think of bacilli as straight bars. Think of cocci as circular spheres. Spirilla is super easy. It sounds just like spirals. And vibrio? Picture a villain's curved hook, which looks exactly like a comma shape. So we have bars, circles, spirals, and hooks. Keep those in your head as we travel deeper. Level 4 is unlocked. It's time to meet the heroes and villains of this microscopic world. We usually hear the word bacteria and immediately think of dangerous germs, right? But that is really only half the story. Some bacteria are incredible heroes that keep our planet functioning. First up, they act as vital decomposers. When plants and animals die, bacteria decay their tissues, recycling essential carbon and nitrogen back into the soil and air. Next, they help with digestion.
Bacteria living in the stomachs of grass-eating animals, the herbivores, help them break down tough plant material called cellulose. Another amazing role, they are vitamin providers. Bacteria living in our very own intestines produce important vitamins B and K for us. And lastly, certain bacteria are used to manufacture life-saving medicines called antibiotics, like streptomycin, which actually help us fight off diseases.
So bacteria are incredibly useful in our daily lives, especially with our food. Have you ever watched someone make curd or dahi at home? They take a little bit of old curd and mix it into warm milk. That old curd is actually packed with our microscopic heroes, specifically a bacteria called lactobacillus. These bacteria multiply in the warm milk and heroically convert the milk sugar, called lactose, into lactic acid. This lactic acid is exactly what makes the milk thicker, turning it into delicious, fresh curd.
But as explorers, we've got to watch out for the villains too. Certain bacteria cause severe diseases in humans, animals, and plants. Our scanners have compiled this data showing some really dangerous human diseases and the specific villainous bacteria that cause them. For example, there's typhoid, which is caused by Salmonella typhi. Cholera is caused by Vibrio cholera. Pneumonia comes from Streptococcus pneumonia. And tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis.
Other villainous bacteria love to attack our food supplies, becoming dangerous food spoilers. For instance, if food isn't canned properly, a type of bacteria that doesn't need oxygen can grow inside, causing a very dangerous disease called botulism. Another villain, Salmonella, can be found in contaminated raw meat and eggs. If that gets consumed, it causes severe digestive diseases. So understanding these microscopic villains is absolutely crucial for hygiene and food safety.
Okay, level 5 is unlocked. It's time for our mission recap and final quiz. Let's lock this data securely into our memory banks and prove our explorer skills. To summarize our field trip today, let's look at this quick Monera mind map. Organisms in this kingdom are all single-celled, meaning unicellular. They are prokaryotic, meaning their genetic material floats freely without that nuclear membrane vault. They come in 4 distinct shapes: bacilla, cocci, spirilla, and vibrio. And finally, they play massive roles in our world as both vital heroes helping with digestion and making curd, and as dangerous villains, causing diseases like typhoid and spoiling our food. All right, explorers, challenge time. I'm going to ask a question, give you a brief second to think, and then reveal the answer. Question 1. What does the crucial scientific term prokaryotic mean? Got your answer? It means the organism is primitive and lacks a well-defined nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. The DNA just floats right there in the nucleoid. Great job. Let's move on to question 2. Using our memory trick from earlier, which of the 4 bacterial shapes is curved like a comma, or a villain's hook? The answer is Vibrio. Remember, bacilli are bars, cocci are circles, spirilla are spirals, and Vibrio is the comma. Awesome. Question 3. Let's test your knowledge of our microscopic heroes. What is the specific name of the useful bacteria that converts milk sugar into lactic acid to make fresh curd? The answer is lactobacillus. Question 4. Let's check your villain database. Which specific harmful bacteria is responsible for causing the human disease typhoid? The correct target is Salmonella typhi. And finally, question 5. This is an application question for the top-tier explorers. If extreme heat destroys living cells and extreme cold stops them from moving or growing, why do we mix old curd into warm milk rather than boiling hot or freezing cold milk? The answer is because bacterial growth happens best in ambient, warm environments. If it's too hot, the lactobacillus bacteria die. If it's too cold, they just can't grow. Excellent work today, explorers. We have officially survived and completed our first stop in the 5-Kingdom adventure. We discovered an entire invisible world of unicellular prokaryotic organisms and learned that bacteria are incredibly powerful, acting as both essential heroes and dangerous villains right here on planet Earth. Make sure to rest up and prepare yourselves because in part 3, our adventure is going to continue into an entirely new, deeply fascinating biological kingdom. Until then, look down at your own hands. How many microscopic heroes and villains do you think are hitching a ride on you right this very second? Stay curious, and I'll see you on the next Explainer adventure.